Carl Jung once whispered a warning so dangerous, it was never meant for everyone to hear. A dark truth about women with rare spiritual power, that what feels like a blessing can also turn into the most hidden form of destruction. In his private journals, he described a woman whose presence seemed to bend reality itself. She dreamed symbols that later unfolded in waking life, she spoke truths that left others trembling, and yet her gift became her prison. The very force that made her extraordinary also tore her apart from the world around her. Jung wrote that she was not ill but that she was ahead of her time, and for that society crucified her with silence. This is not myth, this is history, and if you are still here, listening, it may also be a mirror into your own life. A few weeks ago, when I released the first part of this exploration, 6 dangerous signs of women with high spiritual intelligence, something unexpected happened. The video reached thousands, but what struck me most were your voices in the comments. Some of you wrote, "This is the story of my life." Others said, "This explains the 180-degree turn in my career, the moment when everything broke apart." And hundreds of you urged me, "Continue, give us part 2, take us deeper." So if you have not yet watched that first chapter, I urge you to pause, go back and let it unfold. Because this is not just knowledge, it is initiation. And for those of you who have been waiting, who left those words beneath the video, this is what you asked for. This is the darker continuation Jung never spoke of publicly, and it will cut deeper than before. Tonight we step into the shadow of the gift, into the 8 hidden dangers of women with rare spiritual power. Dangers so subtle that they masquerade as strengths. Dangers so invisible that you may not even realize they are devouring your life until it is too late. If the first part opened your eyes, this one may pierce your soul. Because what I am about to share is not only a list, it is a mirror. And in that mirror, you may finally see why your relationships collapse, why your path feels cursed, why your very brilliance makes others recoil. Stay, not for me, but for yourself. Because to look away is to step blindly into the traps that Jung warned of. But to listen, to truly listen, may be the first step in reclaiming your power before it consumes you. So let us begin. This is part 2. This is the revelation you asked for. And this is Carl Jung's dark warning. The 8 hidden dangers for women with rare spiritual power. In his private notes, Jung described the story of a young woman whose visions were so precise, people began to whisper that she was an oracle. At first they sought her out, desperate for her dreams, clinging to her intuition as if she were a prophet. But the same voices that raised her onto a pedestal later turned on her. The moment her visions no longer served them, she was dismissed, ridiculed, left alone. Jung wrote of her with a quiet sorrow. She carried the burden of foresight, but the world refused to carry it with her. This story may feel painfully familiar. Perhaps you too have carried a truth no one wanted to hear. Perhaps you have spoken words that were later proven right, only to be branded dramatic, unstable, even dangerous. This is not coincidence. It is the pattern that repeats whenever a woman holds a rare spiritual intelligence the collective does not yet understand. In the first part of this series, we uncovered 6 of these dangerous signs, the warning signals that such a gift can both empower and isolate. And when thousands of you shared your experiences, it was clear, this was not theory, this was reality. Some of you wrote that you had been celebrated as visionaries in one season of life, only to be crucified with doubt in the next. Others told stories of sudden betrayal, of communities that once called you their guide, but later cast you as their scapegoat. The pattern is cruel, but it is not new. For centuries, societies have feared women who see too deeply. They are honored until they disrupt, loved until they speak a truth that burns, welcomed until their presence exposes a shadow no one wants to face, and then they are silenced. If you are watching this now, you may already know this silence. You may have felt the ache of being unseen, unheard, or worse, misnamed. And yet here we are, together. Which means you carry the same rare quality Jung described, not pathology, not delusion, but perception that belongs to another time, another depth. And with that perception comes both a gift and a danger. That is why this second part matters. Dearies Hayes, why this second part matters. Because while the first chapter revealed the surface warnings, this one takes us further, together, into the underworld. Here lie the hidden dangers, not the obvious, but the subtle traps that slowly unravel a woman's power from within. traps that disguise themselves as strengths, that lure us in with the illusion of mastery, and then devour the very soul they promise to protect. And now, together, we open the first door. Behind it waits a burden, Jung once described with sorrow, a gift that becomes too heavy to carry. The first hidden danger is the oracle's burden. It begins as a gift, the uncanny ability to sense what is coming before it arrives. You feel the tremor before the earthquake, you dream the symbol before life enacts it, you speak the truth before others can see it. And for a moment people lean in, they marvel at your foresight, they call you wise, even prophetic. It feels like a blessing, but here is the danger. Carrying visions others are not ready to receive is heavy. Too heavy for one soul to bear alone. When your foresight exposes truths that threaten comfort, people turn away. What once inspired reverence now breeds suspicion. They call you dramatic, irrational, even cursed. The very clarity that set you apart becomes the reason you are left apart. History leaves us countless examples. In ancient Greece, the women who spoke as oracles of Delphi were both revered and feared. Kings and generals traveled miles to hear their words, yet when those words challenged their plans, the oracle was blamed, even punished. She was exalted when her vision served others, and abandoned when it did not. This cycle repeats, even now. Perhaps you too have warned a friend of betrayal, only to be dismissed, until the truth unfolded exactly as you foresaw. Jung saw this pattern again and again in his patients. The woman who foresaw too much became isolated, doubted even by herself. And in time she began to carry two wounds, the burden of what she knew, and the shame of being rejected for knowing it. This is the cruel paradox of the oracle's burden. To see clearly is not always to be seen clearly, and when a woman's vision is dismissed, she begins to question her own perception. She silences her truth to keep others comfortable. She learns to hide the very gift that was meant to guide her. Together we must name this for what it is: not madness, not delusion, but the weight of perception that the collective has refused to carry. If you have felt this, the loneliness of being right too soon, the ache of watching others ignore the danger you foresaw, then you know this burden firsthand. And yet, this is only the beginning. For beyond the burden of what we see lies another danger, the peril of what we absorb, when the boundaries of our own hearts dissolve into the pain of the world around us. The second hidden danger is the hyper-empathy hijack. If the oracle's burden is the weight of what we see, this is the peril of what we feel. Women with rare spiritual power often possess an almost unbearable sensitivity, the ability to absorb the emotions of others as if they were their own. You walk into a room and immediately sense the unspoken grief, the anger, the shame that no one else will admit. It is not just perception, it is embodiment. You feel the pain in your own body. At first, this sensitivity appears as a gift. Friends confide in you, strangers tell you secrets they have never spoken aloud. You become the trusted listener, the healer, the one who understands without judgment. But soon the blessing twists into danger. The emotions of others flood you until you can no longer tell where they end and you begin. Their despair becomes your exhaustion, their chaos becomes your anxiety. Their trauma becomes the weight you carry in your chest. History remembers the 14th century mystic Marjorie Kempe, who wept uncontrollably whenever she entered spaces of suffering. Her tears drew both reverence and ridicule. Some believed she was blessed, others mocked her as hysterical. Yet modern historians recognize the truth: she was embodying the unspoken grief of her community. Her body became a vessel for collective pain, and it nearly broke her. This is the hyper-empathy hijack, when your nervous system becomes the battleground for the emotions of everyone around you. Society rewards you for your compassion, but punishes you for the collapse it creates within. And in the quiet hours, you begin to wonder, are these even my feelings, or am I living as a mirror for the world's wounds? Jung warned that unchecked empathy can devour the self. To heal others without boundaries is to bleed yourself into emptiness. And once emptied, the woman with rare spiritual power becomes vulnerable to burnout, depression, even illness. The collective has siphoned her strength, leaving her hollow. Together we must see this for what it is, not weakness, but invasion, not fragility, but hijacking. If you have found yourself carrying emotions that are not yours, the sleepless nights, the tears that arrive without reason, then you have felt this danger firsthand. And this too is only the beginning. For beyond the hijack of empathy lies another trap, one that begins with worship, but always ends with betrayal. The third hidden danger is the pedestal punish cycle. It begins with admiration. A woman with rare spiritual power often radiates wisdom, clarity, or presence so striking that others cannot look away. People elevate her, call her extraordinary, almost otherworldly. For a moment she is honored, placed high on a pedestal as the one who carries light. But the higher the pedestal, the sharper the fall. What begins as reverence soon turns to resentment. The very people who once praised her begin to punish her for the same qualities they celebrated. They accuse her of arrogance, of being too much, of daring to stand apart. The pedestal becomes a stage, and the applause shifts into stones. Consider the story of Hypatia of Alexandria, the brilliant philosopher and teacher of the 5th century. Crowds once gathered to hear her words, and students traveled across empires to learn from her. She was elevated as a symbol of wisdom itself. Yet when her influence challenged the power structures of her time, the same public that once revered her turned violent. She was dragged through the streets, punished for embodying the very brilliance they had once adored. This cycle is not confined to history. Perhaps you too have felt it. In one season, people flock to your insight, your guidance, your presence. They call you gifted, but in the next they resent you for the mirror you hold up to them. Their love becomes envy. Their admiration twists into attack. The pedestal is not a place of honor. It is a trap designed for a fall. Jung observed that the collective projects its unowned qualities onto rare individuals. First, the projection idealizes, turning a woman into an icon. Then, when the illusion cracks, the projection demonizes. She becomes not a human being but a screen for others' unresolved shadows. And no human soul can survive this cycle without scars. Together we must name the pattern. The pedestal is not safe. The applause is not always love. If you have been lifted high only to be torn down, then you know the cruelty of this cycle. To break it requires grounding, refusing to stand on the pedestal at all, remaining human in the face of projection. And yet the punishments are not always loud or violent. Sometimes the danger arrives more quietly, in the shock of truth itself, when honesty burns through intimacy like fire. The fourth hidden danger is the truth shock. Women with rare spiritual power often carry a fierce honesty, the ability to name what others hide, to speak aloud what everyone else avoids. This clarity can be piercing, like light breaking into a darkened room, and when the truth is spoken, it cannot be unheard. At first, this honesty feels liberating. Friends say, "You always know what's real." Communities admire the courage it takes to voice what no one else will admit. Truth-telling becomes your superpower, a sword that cuts through illusion. But soon, the sword begins to wound. Because truth does not only free, it also exposes. And exposure can feel unbearable to those who are not ready to face it. The danger is that your words, though accurate, ignite defensiveness and fear. Loved ones recoil. Partners withdraw. Colleagues turn cold. The truth that was meant to heal becomes the very reason relationships fracture. What begins as clarity ends as isolation. History remembers Cassandra, the daughter of Troy, cursed to tell the truth that no one would believe. She saw the destruction before it came. She spoke the words that could have saved her city, and for her honesty, she was silenced, dismissed, and broken. Cassandra's curse is still alive today, not because the gods decreed it, but because societies punish women who reveal what is too uncomfortable to face. Perhaps you too have felt this. You told a friend the hard truth about a toxic relationship, and instead of gratitude, you were cut off. You spoke openly about corruption at work, and suddenly you were the problem. Your honesty made you dangerous, not because it was false, but because it was true. Jung warned that unfiltered truth can burn like fire. Without care, it scorches intimacy, leaving ashes where closeness once lived. The woman who carries this gift must learn not only when to speak, but how to temper truth with compassion. Otherwise, the shock destroys the very bonds she hopes to protect. Together, we must recognize this danger. The shock is real, but so is the responsibility. If you have watched honesty end in distance, then you know this wound. And yet, the deepest danger is still to come, when rare spiritual power becomes a magnet, not just for admiration or fear, but for the very shadows in others that long to attach themselves to your light. The fifth hidden danger is shadow magnetism. When a woman carries rare spiritual power, she does not only attract light, she also draws the shadows of others. Wounded souls, broken leaders, even predators sense her depth and move toward it. They are pulled, as if by gravity, to the strength they lack within themselves. At first, this may feel like purpose. You meet someone lost, and you become their anchor. A partner in crisis leans on you as their savior. A community begins to treat you as the one who will heal them. Your empathy, your wisdom, your light, all of it seems to find meaning in their need. It feels noble, almost sacred. But here lies the danger. Shadows do not seek to be healed, they seek to be housed. The very people you try to lift may begin to drain you. Their chaos becomes constant, their wounds endless. Instead of growing stronger, they grow dependent. And the more you give, the more invisible you become. Consider the story of Simone Weil, the French philosopher and mystic of the 20th century. She drew the broken and the desperate to her, serving them with relentless compassion. But those who clung to her never released her. They consumed her strength until her body collapsed. She died young, remembered both for her brilliance and for the weight of others' shadows she carried until the end. This is shadow magnetism, the pull of others' darkness toward your light. Jung wrote that unintegrated shadow always seeks an external container, and often it finds that container in the rare woman who can bear it. But no one can carry the shadows of the world without being crushed beneath them. Perhaps you have lived this, the relationships where you became the healer, the mother, the rescuer, the friendships where you felt more like a therapist than a companion, the bonds that left you emptied, while those around you only grew heavier. If so, you know this danger firsthand. Together we must see it clearly. You are not a vessel for everyone else's darkness. Your power is not meant to be consumed. And if you feel this truth burning in you right now, write it. Say it. Let your voice break the silence. In the comments, tell me this is my story, because the second half of this journey will take us deeper into dangers even more hidden than these first 5, and your voice will carry us there. The sixth hidden danger is synchronicity addiction. Women with rare spiritual power often live close to the symbolic fabric of life. Numbers repeat, dreams echo in waking reality, strangers appear at just the right moment. Synchronicities become the secret language of the universe, a confirmation that your path is guided. At first, this feels like magic itself. Every sign seems to whisper you are not alone, you are exactly where you should be. But here is the danger. The more we lean on signs, the more we risk surrendering our agency to them. Decisions that once came from inner clarity become paralyzed by waiting for confirmation. We hesitate, asking, should I move forward, or was that a false signal? We linger in uncertainty, addicted to the reassurance of symbols instead of trusting our own voice. In the Middle Ages, Hildegard of Bingen, the visionary abbess, saw divine order in every detail of life, in music, in plants, in the heavens. Her visions were luminous, but they also bound her. At times she delayed action, waiting for another sign, unable to move without confirmation from above. The same gift that revealed the cosmos also tempted her into paralysis. Some of you may recognize this in your own lives. Holding on to numbers that repeat like an oracle, scanning dreams for hidden instructions, postponing decisions until the universe sends another message. The signs are real, but the grip they take on your freedom can be just as real. Jung celebrated synchronicity as a bridge between psyche and world, but he also warned of its shadow. Symbols are meant to guide, not to govern. When the symbol becomes the master, the woman loses her own sovereignty. Her life becomes a waiting room, filled with signs that lead nowhere because she no longer dares to step forward on her own. Together, we must name this danger. Synchronicity is not meant to chain you, but to remind you. It is a mirror, not a leash. And beyond this addiction lies yet another trap, when the gift of spiritual power turns into martyrdom, and a woman is consumed by carrying everyone else's pain at the cost of her own life. The seventh hidden danger is what I call the reverse spiritual bypass. For many women with rare spiritual power, the temptation is not to escape their own wounds, but to immerse themselves too deeply in everyone else's. Instead of ignoring suffering, they rush headfirst into it, believing they must absorb the pain of others in order to redeem it. Compassion turns into martyrdom. Service becomes self-erasure. At first, this devotion feels noble, to stand beside the broken, to give endlessly, to pour every drop of strength into healing others. It seems like the highest calling. But the danger is that such sacrifice has no end. The needs of others multiply, while the woman herself fades, her body weakens, her spirit grows thin, and her own life quietly disappears beneath the weight of serving everyone else. In the 19th century, Florence Nightingale became a symbol of tireless care during the Crimean War. Her work saved countless lives, yet her journals reveal the cost: chronic exhaustion, depression, and a sense of being consumed by the endless demand for her presence. She was revered as the lady with the lamp, but behind the light was a woman burning herself to ashes in service to others. You might see echoes of this in your own story. Perhaps you have taken on the role of rescuer in every friendship, the one who listens long after your own energy is gone. Maybe in your family you became the steady pillar, carrying responsibilities no one else would shoulder, or in your work you gave until there was nothing left of you. And when you finally collapsed, the world only asked for more. Jung cautioned that such inverted bypassing is just as dangerous as denial. To drown in collective suffering is to abandon individuation, to lose the self in the name of service. A woman who tries to save everyone becomes a ghost in her own life, present for others, absent for herself. Together, we must face this truth: service without boundaries is not love, it is self-destruction. And if you have lived this cycle, you know how quietly it steals your vitality. Yet there remains one final danger, perhaps the most devastating of all: the retaliation of the collective itself, when rare spiritual power becomes too visible to ignore. Together we must recognize the loop for what it is. The backlash is not proof of unworthiness, but of impact. If you have felt its sting, you are not alone. The cycle may seek to silence you, but naming it breaks its spell, and beyond these 8 dangers lies the deeper question: how do we carry this rare gift without letting it destroy us? That is where our journey now turns. We have named the 8 hidden dangers, but naming them is not the end, it is the beginning. Jung believed that the psyche is not healed by denying the darkness, but by integrating it. The gift of rare spiritual power cannot be carried by avoiding its risks. It can only be carried by seeing them clearly, and then choosing not to be defined by them. What does this mean for us? It means refusing to carry shadows that are not ours. It means letting empathy breathe inside clear boundaries. It means stepping down from pedestals before they turn into traps, trusting our inner voice above endless signs, serving without erasing ourselves, speaking truth with both fire and tenderness, and most of all, daring to keep shining even when the collective resists our light. This is the path Jung pointed to, but it is ours to walk now, to walk consciously into the tension between gift and danger, between vision and rejection, and to let that tension transform us rather than destroy us. Individuation, he called it, becoming whole, even in a world that prefers us fragmented. For every woman, this truth carries weight: your power will always unsettle, but it will also always illuminate. The dangers are real, yet so is the freedom on the other side of them. To carry this gift is to risk rejection, but also to touch a depth of life that others may never know. And now this is where you come in. These 8 dangers are not abstractions. They live in your stories, your bodies, your memories. Which one has been yours? Which danger have you carried in silence? Write it below, not only for me, but for each other. Let this space become a chorus of voices, a living map of women who have seen and survived. So leave your words. It can be as simple as, "I carry this gift," 3 words, but together they will create a wall of strength, a reminder that none of us walk alone. Because in the end, this is not only my voice, it is ours. And the more voices that rise, the harder the collective can push, but the less it can erase. So let us carry this gift together, without apology. And we will meet again in the next video, where we will go even deeper. Until then, guard your light, and remember, you are not alone.